Hello everyone and welcome to another excellent game from round 1.2 of the 2019 FIDE World Cup. I think this is the most requested game from those of you who used hashtag suggestion. Jorge Cori, Peruvian Grandmaster, against Nihal Sarin, Indian Grandmaster, who is also the youngest participant of the 2019 World Cup. And in their round 1.1, Nihal won with the white pieces. So here, Cori really needs a win if he wants to take this matchup into tie breaks, which are the rapid games. And if the rapid games are tied, then you go into blitz and so on. I don't know if there's an Armageddon. I haven't checked or how the matchup is decided. But regarding ratings, Cori is some 50 points higher rated than Nihal. Nihal is, I think, around 2610 and Jorge is 2660. Cori definitely the favorite, but now he's in a tough position. He has to equalize, otherwise he gets knocked out of the competition and grabs his $6,000, but he has the white pieces, so let's see what happens. We have c4 by Cori and e6 by Sarin, the Agincourt defense, if I've pronounced that correctly. Knight to f3 with d5 and e3. Of the English, of course. Knight to f6, knight to c3, developing both knights, and b6 now. Nihal is ready to fianchetto his light square bishop with b3, bishop to b7, and bishop to b2 now. Cori is following the game. Nihal already played with the black pieces against Alexei in the 2018 Blitz Championship in St. Petersburg, which ended in a draw. Knight bd7 with bishop to e2, preparing to castle, and now a6 with castles by Cori. Bishop to d6, Nihal also now ready to castle, and d4 with castles, and here we reach a point where the game takes a different turn. Here, queen to c2, this is what Alexei played against Nihal in the World Blitz Championship last year, but here with a4, and a4 is also a new move in the position, so it's already as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. With c5 by Nihal, you don't want your backwards pawn here to stay there forever, so c5 attacking the center with h3, and now rook to e8. Rook to e1, both players just putting their rooks on useful squares. h6, and now bishop back to f1. With rook to c8, bringing the other rook into the game as well, and Cori does the same with rook to c1. And now queen to e7. Connecting rooks, and now rook to c2. As Cori is expecting d captures on c4, he wants to bring the queen either to d3 or e2, and then bring this rook over to b1, as he's expecting the b file to be opened. And Nihal still has the b6 backwards pawn, so perhaps that pawn can become a target. With rook e to d8, and now queen to e2, preparing rook to b1. D captures on c4. D captures on c4, b captures on c4 as planned, and now knight to f8. This knight is now coming to g6, and rook to b1. Now Cori wants to play bishop to c1, bring this rook over here, and try to gobble up some pawns on the queen side. Knight to g6, and now bishop to c1. Now the b6 pawn is under attack, so Nihal has to defend it with queen to c7 defending, and now rook c to b2. So the b6 pawn is under attack, and there's not an easy way to defend the pawn. Nihal found a very interesting way how to defend the pawn. He played c captures on d4, e captures on d4, and now you can't just defend it with a knight to d7 or something like that. You get c5, and it's not a pleasant move to face. You cannot capture, otherwise you get rook captures on b7. But Nihal found the very interesting bishop to a3. And now, if you go after the pawn, for example, rook captures on b6, you get the unfortunate bishop captures on f3. Queen captures and bishop captures on c1, you lose a piece. You cannot recapture. If you recapture, then just queen captures rook on b6. So, after a3, Cori has to get rid of his rooks from the b file. We have rook to, not to c2, we have rook to d2. Sorry, that's d2. Bishop captures on c1, rook captures on c1, and now Nihal with this bishop a3 with captures on c1 maneuver was able to get rid of both of the rooks from the b file. And now queen to f4, just a really active move, putting a lot of pressure on white position. Nihal already won game 1, so he just needs a draw in this game to advance in the FIDE World Cup. Putting pressure on the rook on c1, you have to be careful what you do with this rook. Also, just the threat is capture on f3, minimize material on the board, allow yourself an easily drawn position, and then if your opponent decides to push, maybe you can grab even more. Queen to e3, offering a queen trade, and here Nihal just grabs the knight as planned. Bishop captures on f3, g captures. If queen captures on f4 first, like I said, after this trade, white doesn't really have anything to go on here. The pawn structure is ruined. He has 4 pawn islands, black has 2 pawn islands, and not much to go on, and white needs a win in this game. So g captures on f3, and now Nihal just avoids a queen trade, as he doesn't want to allow white this excellent pawn center. Queen to h4. So what do you play here? It's a really tough position, and white is really struggling here. What best you can hope for, if this was like a normal classical game, if Jorge did not have to go for a win, probably f4, and after you clear the g3 square for your queen, play something like this. You have to give up a pawn, and after this trade here, knight goes back, and you play this endgame, being up a pawn, and hope for a draw. But white cannot afford a draw, so white played rook to b1. He wants to grab the b6 pawn and try to create some chances, some imbalances in the game. But this does not work. Nihal now has a wonderful winning idea. Feel free to pause it and find this wonderful winning idea while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent finder of winning ideas in the World Cup. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, knight to f4. Seems pretty obvious, as the h3 pawn is under attack, but you also have to see that if king defends it with king to h2, the king and bishop now guard the h3 pawn. Now you had to see rook captures on c4. The bishop is, overloaded. He can't keep an eye on the h3 pawn and the rook as well. And here, without the c pawn, you're just lost. That was the only thing you had to go for, hoping for rook captures and maybe start pushing the passed c pawn. But here, there's no good way to continue this. Of course, if you capture the rook, you're getting checkmated. That, of course, doesn't even need to be shown, but I will show it as it's a nice checkmate. So after knight f4, we have rook captures on b6, now hoping to start pushing the pawn here. And also now if you go for check, bishop captures, queen captures, now c5, and you start pushing your passed pawn, white can definitely gain some counterplay here. So after rook captures on b6, Nihal said, no you don't, rook captures on c4. And it's not just about eliminating the pawn, it also vacates the d5 square for either of black's knights, which is a really powerful square, as you'll see in the game. So here there's not much to do. White, as the c4 pawn is now gone, white decided to defend the h3 pawn. He played king captures on h2, but now black has several ways of ending this game. So feel free to pause the video and find your favorite way of how to end the game, or you can try to find the best way to end the game. Well, I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent finder of any of the winning ideas. The winning ideas include this knight to d5, this knight to d5, or the straightforward rook captures on c3. Rook captures on c3 was not played in the game, but doesn't really matter, as either of the three ideas is winning. But this is just seems to be the nicest one, as it immediately offers an exchange. The idea is that after queen captures on c3, you play knight d5, you attack the queen and fork the rook on b6, and now there's really no good way to do this. You can either try and defend the rook, or you can try anything. Let's say you move the queen, queen c2, or queen b2, doesn't really matter. You get knight captures on h3. And now there's nothing to be done here. Once bishop captures, the other knight comes to f4, and you are once again getting checkmated here. So this was the idea behind rook captures on c3. You're not even interested in the rook here. on b6. On the other hand, knight here or this knight here works just as fine. Nihal played knight 6 to d5, and then we just have, well, now the queen and the rook are forked, knight captures, and after knight captures on d5, it was in this position that Jorge Cori, Peruvian Grandmaster, resigned the game and was knocked out of the FIDE World Cup. Grabbed his $6,000, and Nihal advances in the second round, where he faces Eltash Safarli of Azerbaijan. And the game is being played while I'm recording this video, and Nihal has a very promising position against Safarli. So we might see more games from the young Indian Grandmaster. He resigned here, as whatever you play here, of course, loses. The idea, maybe you can give up the queen for some material. Let's say bishop captures on c4, knight captures and pawn captures, and now, okay, there are two rooks and a bishop against the queen and the rook, but black will have a very nice game, and as white's pieces are not really coordinating, the king is wide open. Let's say you go queen e1, you attack the rook, rook blocks, defends the pawn, now you go queen a5, and you're gonna grab the a4 pawn, start slowly winning material, bringing your rook into the game. Of course, if you capture, then queen to c7 check will pick up the bishop, so one of the reasons why it's hard to play, your king is, well, really exposed. On the other hand, after knight captures on d5, you could try queen to e4, just offering a queen trade, but here black just trades, captures, and the problem is after knight captures on b6, it also defends the c4 rook. So bishop captures, knight captures, black is just up a piece. And I always save the best for last. If queen to b3, let's say you don't go for a queen trade, you don't give up the queen, let's say you just protect the rook, what happens here? Now rook to c1 wins the game. This is just wonderful. You can't really do anything here. If you move the queen, you're gonna lose the rook on b6. Knight to f4, still a threat, and well, of course, your bishop on f1 is under attack, and the most beautiful thing of all, if you play bishop to g2 to kind of still keep an eye on the h3 pawn, then just queen to f4 is mate in one, as now the rook covers the h file, and well, the queen just covers the dark squares. So this is one of the nicer mates that could have happened. But yeah, after knight captures on d5, Cori resigns, and yet another wonderful victory for the youngest participant of the FIDE World Cup 2019, with 2 straight wins, which is incredible against a higher rated opponent. So yeah, that's the game. A lot of you have suggested it, so I do hope everyone enjoyed it. I would like to thank Oliver Rauprich and Marcel Fernandez for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the FIDE World Cup, and of course checking up on your suggestions while we figure out where we're going with our next saga. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.